So before I get started, I'm going to share with you a little secret of mine that, with all due, difference to the previous speaker, I kind of hoped it wouldn't have been as good as it was, so it wouldn't be quite as hard to follow after it. So if I don't do as well, you have other people to listen to it afterwards. So
He's just seasoned.
yeah. Well, so before I get started talking about Pluto, I'm going to tell you how I ended up here tonight, and begin with a little bit of the dangers of technology, as it were, and you'll see how this leads into everything. So while they were arranging this meeting that we're all here for, Bob Abel, who's from around here, from what I gather, was arranging all of this stuff to happen, and sent out an email to everybody and said, hey, we're arranging this thing, everybody, can you please volunteer for, giving a talk on some topic, and you can pick up whatever you want to talk about. And I pulled out my phone, and I looked at it, and I said, that seems interesting, but, I'm still pretty new, and, talking in front of a lot of people, and I don't know. Maybe I'll wait till next year at another conference and everything like that. And so I stick my phone back in my pocket, and I go throughout the day, doing whatever. Well, unbeknownst to me, while in my pocket, my phone unlocks and starts typing in random characters and emails it out to the entire body of all astronomers in this workshop. And so later that day, I pick up my phone and I open it up and I see I have an email from Bob arranging this, and I look at it and it simply says, "That's about the most cryptic response I've ever heard. Is that a positive SMPQR blah 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 or a negative SMPQR blah 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 blah?" Needless to say, I was so embarrassed that this happened that I immediately said, "Well, I guess I have to do this. Sure, I'll give a talk." And as a side note, it kind of became almost a little urban legend where everybody I knew emailed me being like, "What is SMPQR?" Obviously it had some deeper meaning behind it. So that leads us into a little bit of New Horizons, this spacecraft that went to Pluto and did all these amazing things. And this is a huge technological achievement, right? I mean, we sent something way, way, way out there. And it traveled for years and years and years to get there. So this thing launched in 2006. And, some of you younger ones here will be like, wow, 2006, that was so long ago. Other people are like, it's 2015 already? What? So, but if you think about it, in 2006, this is before the Chrome web browser debuted, which is the most popular web browser on the planet. This is before the iPhone came out that most people use. So, I mean, we're talking back in the dinosaur days of technology, right? So, and if you think about it, these people were using these dinosaur computers to program this, spacecraft to go fly off into the great unknown and make all these measurements. Well, I don't know how many of you still have your computers around from 2006 that you routinely use, but not very many people do. They, refresh it every so often, right? Well, it turns out with New Horizons, they've made all these wonderful computer programs and MATLAB code and all this great stuff to make their measurements, but they were smart enough to recognize that, in 10 years, we might not be able to use these computer programs because they will be out of date. So what did they do? They took all their computers, after all was said and done, and they locked it in a sealed room. So that when they started getting the data back from this spacecraft, they would be sure that their computers could run the code. And so this is a danger we call, bit rot, as it were. That your bits of computer code will just suddenly rot away and be useless. So that's just a little funny side that gets us into the actual mission. So they launched in 2006 and they get going. And it was billed, to all these agencies for funding because, you have to go beg, borrow, and steal and sell a kidney to get missions going, And so you're on your way to Pluto. And in the meantime, a few things happened. One, to the great chagrin of the project leader, Pluto is reclassified, which I'll get back to later. And he went from having, the mission to the last unexplored planet to having the mission to just Pluto, right? So he was not happy about this. And he gives strict marching orders to all of his subordinates that, no, we will not accept this, and we will, fight the good fight. So anyway, so this thing's flying off to Pluto. And in the meantime, they also discover some other things about Pluto, right? So they discovered 2 more moons while they're flying there, because a lot of people are staring at it, making sure they understand everything and they're not going to smash into anything, because that's really hard to justify to your funding committees that we accidentally hit a moon. Like, that just doesn't happen. So these moons, two of which were Styx and Kerberos. And a side note about Styx, I mean, these are all named after the ancient Greek and Roman gods from their world and stuff, because Pluto's so far away. But the band Styx was, for you rock and roll fans, the band Styx was so honored that they share a name with this new moon of Pluto that during the New Horizons closest approach, they all decided to go and join the scientist staff in the viewing thing and participate in the festivities of everything. So that's a little side. So they're flying out to Pluto and they're discovering new things, but really they kept thinking that, okay, well, it's sort of the end of the solar system. We're going out there. That's sort of the end of things. We're tying up our loose ends in our theories of how the solar system forms, and what's this little thing out there, and we're going to go there and we're going to learn stuff, but that's sort of going to be nearing the end of what we are understanding of our own solar system. There's always more to do, but that'll be the big broad brush strokes of everything. And so they expected to find mostly a snowball, a primordial piece of ice and some dust and stuff that's been locked out there, super cold from the beginning of the solar system. And it's going to be mostly a snowball. They're going to see some haze from some gases melting and refreezing and stuff like that. But pretty much they thought they had it figured out, right? Well, that's the famous last words for anything, right? I don't care what field you're in. Once you think you have everything figured out, as we talked about in the previous, that's the nail in the coffin. You're just going to be wrong. And so they fly by Pluto, and what do they find? Well, not just a simple dusty little snowball. They find stuff with lots of colors and rich chemistry and giant mountains and surprisingly few craters on this. And so those two things are actually really big deals. And most people are like, well, okay, mountains and no craters. Why is that a big deal? Well, if you think about it, on Earth, how do we get mountains? We get mountains when plates crash into each other and then they stick up in the sky and whatnot. Well, why do they crash into each other? Well, we have volcanoes and we sit on top of lava and it spews out and pushes these big rocks around and they crash into each other. Well, Pluto doesn't have lava. Pluto's not warm. There's no plate tectonics on Pluto. How do you get these mountains to build up? And mind you, they know that these mountains aren't very old, because you can tell by the fact that there's no craters. And so you say, okay, well, how do you get these mountains? Well, I wish I had an answer for you, because I would have all these papers published, and I would have a long-term professor tenureship somewhere, but I don't know, and neither do they, and that's really exciting when you get to say, I don't know, there's more to discover. Well, going back to these craters, you say, okay, why aren't there craters? Well, okay, we know that things have to run into it, because over 4 billion years of our solar system, everything has craters. Everything in the solar system has craters. The only things that doesn't have craters is when the craters get erased. Okay, well, how do you erase craters? Well, on a snowball like Pluto would be, is you melt them away, or in some other case, you cause them the ice to flow and refreeze. That's how you would get rid of anything. On Earth, we get erosion in it from wind and water and stuff. Out there, you would cause the craters to melt and refreeze and it's flat again. Well, out at Pluto, you get about 1 watt per square meter, or for everybody who's in the rest of America, 1 watt per square yard, right? So that's not a lot of power. I mean, that's less power than your cell phone uses. That's less power than most things. Well, that would be like trying to melt a crater by walking up to a glacier with a match and trying to stand there and melt this glacier with a match. It's just not going to happen. So how do you do this? How do you melt, and get rid of these craters? Well, we don't know. And that's the exciting thing, is we thought this was the end of, the broad brush strokes of explaining the solar system, but really it's the new beginning of all this understanding of how things form. Our understanding of these distant icy things is not at all what we thought it was going to be. But in addition to that, people always years ago thought Pluto was the end of the solar system. Yeah, we knew there was some comets and stuff further out, but for the most part they're tiny, they don't really count, and they're not a big deal. But we thought that was sort of the end. Well, why the spacecraft is heading towards Pluto we start discovering, okay, there's some other stuff out there. And it turns out that there are at least 9 other bodies out there that are the size of Pluto or larger. And they're all very, very similar to each other. And this leads us back to, like I said, I would get back to the whole Pluto not being a planet is a planet thing. Everybody's really passionate about this. So we discovered that Pluto's a lot more like all these other things. They're all much more similar to each other than they are all the rest of the planets. So we say, okay, well, we probably need a different category to put these things in that describes they're more similar to each other than the other things. And, everybody's up in arms about this, but, really, I see nobody getting up in arms when a butterfly gets changed its, taxonomic class from one type of butterfly to another. It's just bookkeeping. And so, I've never seen it, but, I've never seen a religious war like you've seen the war on Pluto. It's okay. It's got a new family, and, it's out there. So, really, in another way, that's how we thought it was the end of the story when we first started this. We're going to the end of the solar system, but really, it's just the beginning of the rest of the solar system that we didn't even know. And that's one of the exciting things about this, and that's why I love doing astronomy is, I'm a romantic at heart. I like the notion of back in the day, people would get on a sailing ship and go out and explore unknown lands. And in a way, we're really starting to do that now. We're going out and exploring our solar system, and the next generation will go further. And we're really starting to get in the age of sailing ships of space. And because if there's anything like if there's anything humanity likes more than anything, it's staring out and saying, hey, that horizon over there, I want to go see what's on the other side. And then we go out to that horizon, and then what do we see? We see a new horizon. Thank you very much.